build high-power lasers. It's a semiconductor chip. And we have plants all over the world that apply that technology into industrial and defense and medical markets. In addition, we're headquartered here. We also have a site on the other side of the river in Hillsborough. And I think, Tom, you mentioned that we should think of this region as one region, and I agree with you. This is one region. We have a radically different tax structure, but other than that, I think we need to think about the region as in a holistic way. In addition, at Enlight, we've started an education nonprofit called NConnect, and I'll talk about that in a bit. In terms of the opportunity that I see, I think the CRADC, Lisa and the whole team have done a great job on outlining what we need to do in terms of retaining businesses, attracting new businesses, and helping develop startups. And I suppose from my perspective, one of the areas where I think we've got big opportunity is in the area of helping develop more startup companies. I think software is one very good example where the opportunities for high-pay jobs is profound. If you look at the recent grads coming out of computer science, I'm familiar with the University of Washington, the starting salaries are off the charts. And I think we can do a lot more to encourage more startups in that space. I think one of the great things that the Columbian is doing is the business section of the Columbian is very good. And I think we need to acknowledge that is also part of helping build our community and build this whole sector. When you're starting a company, it's hard, and to get support and encouragement from the entire community is very important. I remember back in the 80s and the 90s in Seattle, the PI and the Seattle Times both had very good business sections, and that was part of, I think, what helped grow that whole sector there. So I acknowledge the great support from the Columbian there. And I think we need to support the various new initiatives that are getting going. I'm looking around the room, and I think Steve Hicks probably alone is going to start 10 companies next year. And I think we need to find those individuals to help support them to create new companies. I think if I step back, though, and talk about the two kind of high-level themes that I think about that are going to help us grow our region, indeed, I'd start with our nation. I think of it in sort of very simplistic terms. There's two things: increasing trade and improving education. I think on the trade front, that is less of a regional issue, but I think there are aspects that we can support. We talked about the bridge. I think that's vital. That hurts our business right now, and we need to get that going. I go to China a lot, and I would guess that what they spend on building a high-speed rail is probably what we've already spent. So I think we can do more there. Another dimension I think is important. It's a bit of a specific issue, but it's just those international connections are vital to building our region. And never forget that the book, was it The World is Flat by Friedman? Generally a pretty good book, but his fundamental thesis was just wrong. I think his thesis was that the internet and communications has helped rapidly lead to globalization. I don't think that's true. I think his anecdote in India may be true, but in general, business is done face-to-face, and it always will be. And so those international connections through PDX are critical. And right now, I think we only have one to Asia. So anything we can do to help that, I think, is important. But I think the issue that is something that we can do a lot about in our region is education. And I do want to start this by, I think everybody now is aware of some of the challenges in education. I want to start by saying there's been great progress also, and great progress in our local schools. Very involved in what's going on, and what I've seen is dramatic improvements. I think there's a tendency for all of us as we age to somehow think that what we did was better than what it is today. I don't think that's true in education, or at least I'll assert that. I went to public high school in Bellevue, arguably the best public high school in the state. I would assert that the schools here today are far better than the school I went to, graduated in 1983. So there's been progress, but the challenge is still profound because the rest of the world is also improving at a very rapid rate. And I see this as the critical issue for us in our region, K through 12 and higher ed. And I think there's a lot we can do. And I guess, again, I think about two thrusts here in education. One is really addressing fundamental issues, the structural issues, and the second is a set of pragmatic issues where we can really do something in the near term. So I think there's a number of structural issues, and frankly, economists can pretty easily diagnose what's going on there structurally, and I think we need to address those. But those are going to take time. On the pragmatic side, there's things we can do today to help with the schools, and one of the programs that I'm very close to is a program called EnConnect, and I guess we're shamelessly promoting this morning, so everybody, you can get an overview. And very simply, what we do is bring the talent in from the community to help the teachers and the students in our local high schools. It's a pretty simple concept, and it really works. And there's two things that people in this room can do. One is help us with talent. We're always looking for people to help mentor, to help come in and be speakers. There's a lot to do, so please check out the website. And the other one is just support us. We've got a very low overhead, we only have 2 full-time people, but there is limited funding from the schools and from other government agencies, and so there's a little bit we need to do there too. So those are the two things that I think are very pragmatic that can help us transform our region. Good.
Thank you, Scott. So I'm going to take your shameless plug and raise your one. It's a terrific program that Scott is talking about, and it's one of those really wonderful opportunities that is bubbled up out of community, individuals, and concerns about our future, completely driven by a set of passionate individuals. Why don't you give the URL so people know what the website is to go to? And honestly, take your pen out, write it down, because the next thing you're going to do is write a question, right, and raise your hand. But Scott, give us the URL so that people can get involved.
So it's on the brochure, and it's just enconnect.org.
Yeah, it's about as simple as it gets. Thanks, Scott.
Good, thanks.
So terrific perspectives. When I sit here and think about what are the hot community conversations that are going on here, I want to start with those questions. So we're not going to go easy on you here at all. One of the things that has been very much in the news recently is a community effort that was designed to try and attract Nike to the community. That was information that was made public recently. And we didn't make the top 3 in that, and I don't think Nike's yet made a decision. If they have, I haven't read about it. But from each of your perspectives, I'd like to understand what you think are our chances of being able to attract one of those sort of top 50 companies to Vancouver. And we've got land, we've got talent, we've got other things. What's standing in our way? Tom, why don't you start?
Okay. First, let me say, with the Nike situation, and parallel to that, I'm at Portland State University. We are interviewing new faculty members because we have some retirements. And one of the things that happens is that other faculty members at other schools that are coming up for tenure always go out to the job market just in case they don't get tenure, but also to use it as a bargaining chip if they do get tenure for the salary increase. So I just put that as an analogy as to Nike shopping around. So, but having said that, I think you have a company like Scott's is here. You've got some good tax advantages. Everything indications are that the business zoning process is a lot smoother than it is, say, in Oregon. So you have, I think, a lot going for you. The other aspects, though, I would say is that, as through my comments, is what else do you do to make yourselves more attractive? And it's almost these intangible things that you kind of have to build up. I know you're doing that with remodeling of downtown and so on, and changing things around, and I think that's very encouraging. So I think along those same lines, you've got the infrastructure ready. You've got a new rail line out to the terminal, at the Port of Vancouver. All that is in your favor. You've got to get that I-5 bridge to reduce the costs and amenities.
Randy?
Yeah, I won't duplicate Tom's comments. I'd say the bridge is a crucial aspect. Whether this bridge is exactly the right thing is certainly the question. You always want to do that cost effectively, and you don't want to just move a parking lot So there are things that have to be done in Oregon and in Washington to make sure that that bottleneck just doesn't reappear somewhere south or north of here. So I think that may have had some bearing on Nike. I know also that Apple was shopping you guys for a server farm location, and you did not get that. I think the only thing I'd say is that be careful. I appreciate very much you're not entering into this what can be sometimes a loser's game of giving away more than you end up getting. There are scale and cultural sort of issues that may be in the background there, but I think this was a very logical place for Nike to expand, but for perhaps the transportation issues, access to the overall regional labor pool. And I don't know what their thinking was. I have no special knowledge of it, but there's not when Tektronix moved from part of its operation, most of its operation from Beaverton to Wilsonville, that's not much further than Beaverton to Vancouver. So you should be in the running for those kinds of things, and there's a few things I think just holding you back.
Thank you. Scott.
Yeah, I think kind of a very specific topic here. Come back to education. I think that when I look to go hire somebody, especially if they have a family, the first thing they ask are, how are the schools? And I think in this case, it's a pretty stark contrast. I've been trying to help out across the river too at Sunset High School, which is across the freeway from Nike. They just changed the funding there, massively increased the class size. They're struggling. It's really tough. I don't want them to struggle. I don't want to win on this kind of competition. But I think we're positioned very well by improving schools here. It's not just about building the funnel of talent for our companies. It's about attracting the best and the brightest people to our region. And again, the first thing they want are the best schools. So I think it's another dimension where we can help attract those companies.
Great, thank you. Another thing that was on the front page of the newspaper yesterday is about funding and support of local economic development organizations. As my introduction said, I'm on the board of Greater Portland. I'm also on the board of CREDC. Obviously, I support the notion of those kinds of economic development councils and efforts of government that are largely government funded, but also a lot of private investment. What's your opinion of the importance and nature of the contributions that those organizations make? Randy, why don't we start with you?
Well, I think they serve a very important role in gathering information, disseminating information, getting people to know who you are, what your advantages are, perhaps even down to identifying site and transportation opportunities and so forth. I personally draw the line at the when things become sort of bargaining for jobs, buying jobs. The track record of that historically, whether it's stadiums or solar panel companies, is bad. The internal rate of return on what you give up that you end up having to pay is very, very low, if not negative. In case of stadiums, it's negative. So I think it's part of my sort of don't just stand there, get out of the way sort of is what you guys want to do. You want to make sure people know about you, what your advantages are, get the information out there, get the people together, but stop at the point of trying to buy jobs. I know that you're not doing a lot of that, and applaud you for it, but other places are. And it's all off balance sheet, so you can't find out that the city of Portland has probably over $100 million of loan guarantees that are off balance sheet. Someday some of those are going to come a cropper.
Tom?
Yeah, they're definitely very important. The same comments that Randy made, I concur with. Gathering information, getting the name out there, so on and so forth. The tough part in any economic development is there's no recipe of success, in a sense. We've got Richard Florida with the creative class. We've got this economic gardening idea. If we actually knew how to do it, everybody would replicate it, and we'd all be, prosperous. But it's not that way. It's always going to be a struggle. But the struggle is worth it, and I think the area that should focus on it are these economic development agencies and offices.
Scott, you've got a disclaimer to make on your answer, but
No, it just maybe to build on a different topic, which is, or a different aspect of this, which is just providing connections. I think that I agree that as a CEO of a company, I suppose I should be looking for those subsidies for my company. As a citizen, I agree with you that it probably doesn't make sense. But I do think one of the areas where the CRADC in particular has been very helpful is connecting people in our community. And I think that's one of the reasons this region is so vibrant, is that we're big enough to do some cool things, yet we're small enough and connected enough to get things done, whether it be nonprofit things that we've done like NConnect or other things in our business. We've been able to do things that I know my competitors in the Bay Area can't do. It's just too big and it's too disconnected. So that's the aspect that I see.
May I make a small addendum comment?
Absolutely.
A couple of years ago, we did a study for the then mayor of Portland about what the mayor had the idea that we should have a biotech center. We should have, I've forgotten, there were 5 or 6 initiatives. And so we studied the growth of every county in the United States, or how its growth transpired, and whether the idea of trying to start something from scratch, from a seed, really made sense in economic development. Turns out you're best off pivoting off of what you already have, pivoting off your strengths. The highest rates of employment growth occurred in areas where people took what they had and exploited them further, rather than said, well, let's put up a building. It's empty now, but it says Biotech Center on it. And I helped form the San Francisco Biotech Center 25, 30 years ago, and know that that's really had almost nothing to do with it. It was the universities that made that place the biotech center that it is. So that's just one. I don't know whether it's a helpful or cautionary note, but just do more of what you're already doing successfully.
well, I'll follow up on that. My business is not economics, of course, but it's brand marketing. And one of the things that we hold as a self-evident truth in my business is that you want to create a position for yourself, your company, or your region, if I were to extrapolate it, that is highly differentiated, highly relevant, so differentiated from the rest of the competition, relevant to a target market, which means, first of all, you have to have a target market, and then valuable to yourself, which goes to not buying jobs, that notion. But those 3 components of differentiated, relevant, and valuable would suggest that we have an opportunity to create such a tight area of focus that we really stand out as differentiated. The risk, of course, of that is that, 1, not everybody feels equally included, and 2, that you've picked the wrong target. But in that seesaw between being fairly specific, whether it's cluster identification or some other aspect that you might focus on, or being sort of open doors to anybody who's interested, where would you counsel us to go as a community?
If you think you have clusters, identify them and get them out there. Put it in people's faces. A lot of people don't know that Clark County has what it has. And but I think the posture should be that, and not everybody's putting up a biotech center sign in their, everyone's got one in their development plan, and obviously that won't be successful for everyone. So take what you've got, measure it, know what that is, look at what its future prospects are, and help promote it. Other things, new things, will probably be spawned by that, by successful clusters.
Around the halo.
Halo effect of the existing clusters and their novel growth. So anyway, I said more than enough on that.
Yeah, maybe I'll take a somewhat radical point of view here, just to make the case that we can't predict. Take Solyndra, for example. I think everybody knows Solyndra now and how it was a nightmare. Well, I worked with Solyndra. That was a great team. It was really good technology, and being able to predict whether they would succeed or not, you couldn't do that. And so when I see these nano clusters and these other things, I'm not a cynic, but I'm fairly critical, and we just can't predict. It's sort of like the survey you did in high school that predicted whether you should be an architect or a plumber or whatever. You know, give me a break. We don't know. And likewise for the region. I think if we educate people in world-class skills, they're going to do great things. And predicting which exact industry that's going to be, I don't think it's usually very fruitful.
Tom?
I have to agree with both Randy and Scott, which is the safe thing to do.
We won't hurt you.
We won't, okay. But, you know, I think, you know, the economic development type of idea of the field of dreams, you know, you got the land out there, build and they will come, doesn't really work. And I really think you do have to find out what is your core competencies, leverage that the best you can, and that's where you can get, I think, the better differentiation from other areas.
Great. I've gotten this question a couple of different ways. I'm going to ask, because some of you will recognize your question and say, she didn't ask it exactly right, but I'm combining things here. What, in terms of encouraging job development and economic development, job recruitment, what, can you each give one thing you think we ought to start doing that we're not doing now?
Recruiting jobs from other places, competitively recruiting jobs to this location.
From other regions?
Again, I think if someone had asked me to characterize Clark County, what's here, what the ambient labor pool looks like, what its education level looks like, you know, I'd say I didn't know I'm just across the river. I'm in Vancouver all the time, but I couldn't tell you that. So I don't know. I'm not saying that's a shortfalling on anyone's part. It's just that's what you've got to get out there. That's got to be the first page on your web page.
Great. Scott, one thing we should be doing that we're not doing now.
Start doing.
Start doing.
Can we start building a bridge, or?
I'll take that as an answer, but do you have another one? That was an easy one. Give us another one.
I think we've got some things that are sort of nascent and getting going right now that we need to amplify. And again, my theme is education, so I think there's a number of things. And I think that the point that I want to reiterate again is that everybody in this room can help. And if we do that, that is differentiated. Again, I'd go to other larger communities, Seattle, Bay Area. That's not happening as much there. I think there's a lot more going on here already, and if we can amplify it, that is different.
Great. Tom, you got one for us?
Well, real quick, I think Scott hit on it before, is communicating better out to the outside communities that your school system is very good, and relative to other places that are struggling, you're relatively much better off, and that's going to be a job attractor.
Great. Shifting gears a little bit, we have a question here around HR policies, and really it's around talent recruitment or retention, keeping people on board. Now we know that there are a lot of companies in Silicon Valley who have some really bold and sort of adventurous almost policies around keeping people on board. Scott, maybe you could talk about anything you do in your business yourself or other things you're aware of, and maybe the other two of you can be thinking about things that show up as particularly valuable versus sort of the something that gets a lot of press but doesn't actually have a lot of impact.
In terms of retention of
employee
employees?
retention.
Yeah. That's a very general, broad question, I guess, but I don't have a silver bullet for sure. We've done a pretty good job. We've grown our company sort of 20 to 50% and had low turnover. I think the key dimensions there are obviously growth helps.